Comic Book Savant, episode 342.
I know this. This I know. All that I have, all that is me, resides inside my poetry. And every time I write a rhyme, it might be the line that sets mine free. And also, I know that I don't...
Welcome to the Comic Book Savant podcast. I'm your host, James Harris. This week's episode, I'm going to delve deep into the DCEU, or the DC Expanded Universe, which kind of what we're calling the DC Cinematic Expanded Universe. So we're going to go into detail. We're going to talk about what has been released to this point, things that have been announced, and we've all identified that it has been a kind of rocky start to the DC Cinematic Universe, and I'm going to go about with all the information that has been released to this point, kind of piece together or try to come up with what my solution I think could be to kind of get things back on track and break that down. But before we get into all that, as always, I'd love to give a shout out to my friends over at the Comics Podcast Network. You can find them over at comicspodcast.com. It's a great place if you love comic book related podcasts and you like this show and you want to find similar content to this show. It is the best place to go on the internet to find comic book related podcasts. I've been a part of the Comics Podcast Network for basically as long as this show has been around. It started off with just a handful of like-minded friends that we all kind of helped each other starting in our endeavors of doing this whole thing of comic podcasting, and it grew from 10 to 20 podcasts to literally hundreds. So it's a one-stop shop, so to speak. It is literally hundreds of different shows listed there. So you can go there and quickly find related content to comic books, be it on a particular publisher, a particular character or team, you name it. You can pretty much find it there at the Comics Podcast Network. Again, you can find it at comicspodcast.com. Go check it out. You'll, like I said, if you're looking for more content to listen to your daily commute or just when you're at home, it's a one-stop shop. So if you have a moment, check it out and find some more cool comic book content to listen to. Last but not least, I'd like to give a shout out to my friends over at nstocktrades.com. They sponsor this in, every episode. They're the one standing partner that I've had since the very beginning of the podcast. It is, the best place to go to online when you're looking for collected editions, Marvel Masterworks, omnibuses, absolute editions, you name it. If it's a collected or trade paperback, you can pretty much find it over at nstocktrades.com. If you're unfamiliar with the service, they have all types of collected trades and hardcovers and special editions, like I just said, with discounts. It was starting around 35% off up to 42% and 50% off with their deals of the week. Now, I've just been noticing recently that they've expanded their selection. Before, I told you guys they have the deals of the week. It used to be about 5 books. Now I'm seeing that they're opening it up, and I was just looking at the front page now. And again, I don't want to quote it because when this episode's released, it might change. So I won't go over the individual books they have right now because I don't want to tell you something wrong, and then you go looking for it and it's switched to new deals because they update it weekly. Then now I see they have like 15 books under their deals of the week, and those are at 50% off. If you place an order of $50 or more, you get free shipping if you're within the U.S. So if you're a U.S.-based customer, you place an order of $50 or more, boom, you get free shipping within the U.S. Unfortunately, if you're an international listener of this and you shop at nstocktrades.com, you still get all the great savings. Don't worry about that. You just wouldn't get that free shipping. but they do have some of the lowest and most competitive international shipping rates around. So no worries on there. You're still going to save a ton of money. Check it out. It is a great service. Again, I've been a customer of them. They came on very early on, probably after the first year of me doing a podcast, starting a podcast, and have been a partner ever since. I was telling you guys that I was in talks with them about rolling out a big contest. It's going to start in July, so details are coming soon. But it's a really big, it's probably going to be the biggest giveaway that I've done in the history of the show. I appreciate them. They're a great partner. Whenever I ask them for stuff to do for contests and giveaways, they're super awesome about it. So, I didn't, with everything that was going on so crazy last summer, and I took a hiatus for most of the summer dealing with a lot of personal stuff. I didn't get to do the big giveaway that I wanted to do for the 10th anniversary of the show. But since we're going into year 11, I wanted to do something big this summer. So they opened up the checkbook and really hooked me up. So I'm excited to announce that I'll announce that the first episode in July, and the contest will run, the contest giveaway will run for 1 month, and I'll announce the winner on the 11th anniversary show episode in August. So that will be forthcoming. And again, I appreciate them for all their support. Check them out in stocktrades.com. If you ever try them out, let them know. If you shoot them an email, let them know you heard about them here on the Comic Book Savant podcast. It always helps me out a ton. With all that being said, before we get into the episode, I did get an iTunes review. I try not to ask you guys to do so much in the episodes, but you guys have really been awesome with, sharing content and doing all that, great stuff. And I got a new iTunes review. I wanted to give a shout out to the reviewer. His name is Jake Danzing. He left it on June 9th. I normally check monthly, check at the end of each month, since we're coming to a close, and I was unable to record last week. Just had a lot of stuff going on. So I was actually supposed to shout him out last week when I was supposed to do this episode. He left a 5-star review, and it reads as follows. He was like, it's just one guy, but he keeps it informative and entertaining, and he's very passionate about comics. And he said, keep it up, man. You're awesome. And this is what I talk about sometimes when I talk about the Comics Podcast Network, and when you try different podcasters, it means so much. Like, it really touched me when I saw it and I read it, because it lets me know that, you guys appreciate what I do. Is, when I sit here by myself looking at the computer, I picture I'm talking to you guys, and like we're sitting in the comic book shop talking. Sometimes you don't get feedback. You'll see likes, different places. Sometimes I will get an occasional email. Sometimes I'll get a message or a response on Facebook. So it's really cool when I get that feedback. Don't ever feel, my whole purpose in doing this is that it's a shared experience. I want you guys to contribute as much as possible. So if you leave me a comment on Facebook, I'm going to read it. If you don't want me to read it on the show, or if it's just something directly to me, or I will, as soon as I see it, I tend to respond to those things. Or if you send something on Instagram, don't feel like you can't leave me a message or I'm inaccessible. I want you to contact me on those formats. That's why I've pushed to get over my roadblocks with social media so hard, this year. That it was one of my main goals, to try to post consistently on Instagram, to post on Facebook on the page. I've even started a Facebook group. I'm going to have I'm adding a link. Actually, I've already added it to the website. So when you go to comicbooksavant.com, if you go to discussion group or Facebook group, I have a link right in the top navigation of the website that you can click on it, and it'll take you right to the discussion group I started up for the show. I'm putting stuff there, posting. You guys can post stuff there that I can know that you guys want for topics of the show. I want this to be an interactive, two-way experience between us. It's just like we're sitting in a comic shop. We can still do it virtually, even though we're nowhere near each other. We're all in different places in the country and across the world. Doesn't mean we still can't interact and talk about comics. So that just really energized me. And I like I said, I love it when you guys, shout out and just, tell me what you're thinking about the show. So it's good to get some positive, feedback, because I work real hard and I put a lot into, what I'm doing. I put a lot of thought into it. I spend, a lot of time making sure that I'm just not a talking head, and I'm giving you some information. I'm giving you something to think about, something to try, because you can go to any other podcast and just get comic book reviews. Anybody can do that. But I try to give you a little bit more and give you my, my passion and my love about comics, and try to make it funny, and topical, as possible, to give you something a little bit different that, other people, something maybe that other people won't give you and make you think a little bit. So, I appreciate it, and don't feel like you can't reach out, because I love when you do. So, and I think any podcaster loves to hear from, his audience and the people that he's servicing by, putting the content out there. So I want more of it, more iTunes reviews, more, follow on Instagram, shoot me messages, join. Definitely. That's what I set up the Facebook group for, is to give you guys somewhere to go where you can meet one another. We all can talk and discuss. So if you do a search on Facebook, just do a search for Comic Book Savant, and for groups, it's a closed group, so you can find it's searchable. But then you just add, click to add to join the group, and then me or one of the admin will just add you to the group from there, and then you'll be able to see all the posts and stuff like that. So it's a really easy, quick process. So if you have a moment, do that, and let's talk comics, in that. But with all that being said, let's get back to trying to fix the DCEU. So far, we've had 4 motion picture releases. It all kicked off in 2013 with Man of Steel, directed by Zack Snyder, written by David Goyer and Christopher Nolan. I really enjoy this movie. I watched this movie, I think last summer. I rewatched it for the first time in a long time. And, for me, I gave it a rating of a must buy. I gave it a 9 out of 10, basically, pretty high rating. Love the movie. Love it even more when I, after watching Batman v Superman Dawn of Justice, the Ultimate Edition, seeing all the Superman parts that were cut out, it made me enjoy that movie even more. And I kind of liken it, and I use this analogy all the time in pictures, where I say, I love Casino Royale. A lot of people did not like Quantum of Solace. And I say the biggest problem with people is that they don't look at it as a whole. It's one continuous story. It's one whole movie. That's how I feel with Man of Steel and Batman v Superman, the Ultimate Edition, not the theatrical, because they cut out so much. Everything they cut out fleshes the movie out, and when you pair the two together, it's one long narrative. It's one long story, and it makes it a better movie. So after I saw the Ultimate Edition, and I watched Man of Steel before, and I actually watched it after, and it made me enjoy Dawn of Justice more after watching it again, after watching the deleted scenes in the Ultimate Edition. So I gave that a 9 as well. I gave it a must buy, 9 out of 10. Because its connection to Man of Steel and how it ties together makes it a stronger movie, though I still have issues with that movie by far. But I look at the two as one whole, not two separate entities. Then we got Suicide Squad, which came out in 2016. Dawn of Justice came out 2016. And then we had Suicide Squad that came out 2016 as well. Batman Dawn of Justice was also directed by Zack Snyder, written by David Goyer and Chris Terrio. When we had Suicide Squad, directed by David Ayer and also written by David Ayer. Now, here's my thing about Suicide Squad. In subsequent reviewings of the Suicide Squad, it actually has dropped for me. I think at the time I gave it on my rating scale, I gave it a date night rental. I gave it like I think like a 7.5 or something like that, or a 7. I've watched it quite a few times since then. I even saw the deleted, their extended or edition or whatever, which wasn't too much deleted scenes. It might have been more like 15 minutes where Superman was like 30 minutes or more. It might even just been 10 minutes for Suicide Squad. I can't remember. Or 7. I think it was like 7 minutes. Maybe it was less than 10. It wasn't much, and it was Joker related stuff. But in subsequent reviewings of Suicide Squad, my rating has gone down. And my biggest issue with Suicide Squad is it's just not a good movie. I love the characters, and I love the general premise of them being together. But like I said in my review of the Suicide Squad, it was similar to my feelings were about the first Guardians movie. Loved the characters, didn't like the adventure they were on, felt like that could have been done differently. But loved the characters and would love to see a Suicide Squad sequel. But didn't really like the movie that they premiered in. They all these 3 movies to this point all were kind of panned critically, but all were successful money wise. As far as they all made a profit, they all did bank, they all did really good money. Just wasn't critically and fan approved as far as that was concerned. Like I said, I really enjoyed Man of Steel. I thought Batman v Superman was decent, the theatrical release, but I really enjoyed the Ultimate Edition better. And Suicide Squad, like I said, I thought was okay. It was mediocre at best. But it just doesn't hold up. Then we had Wonder Woman that just came out earlier this month. Probably, to me, I gave it a 7.5, which I gave it a date night rental. It's a solid movie. Really liked it. Had some, issues with it, which I talked about in the review I did earlier this month. So I'm not going to rehash all of that. But definitely a step in the right direction. And I feel like hopefully they use this as a turning point to back away the studio of Warner Brothers to kind of back away. And one thing that hasn't been talked about a lot, they had a huge power restructuring at Warner Brothers from the top down, even into the DC Films division. In the middle of all this, that has changed things. Now they have Jeff Johns is in place, kind of in a Kevin Feige role that Kevin Feige has over, at Marvel to kind of help things. And so this was kind of the first movie under his watch. And you can see definitely it's been a shift in tone. You can see we saw in the other movies, especially Batman v Superman and Suicide Squad, that we heard a lot of stories and rumors that a lot of changes were made based on the studio butting in, wanting things changed and not really letting the director do their thing and do their movie. And maybe those movies suffered because of it. And it seems like they kind of let Patty Jenkins do her thing over in the corner. And they kind of left her alone, and it paid dividends because this was the first one of their movies that it actually got that fan approval and critical acclaim. And it is doing extremely well and still kicking butt in the box office, 3 weeks after its release, which is awesome. And I'm really, happy for Patty Jenkins, Gal Gadot, and the writers. We had the writers as Alan Heinberg, which is a comics guy, comics and TV guy. Jeff Johns, of course, comic guy, and Zack Snyder as well. They all collaborated in terms of the story and the script. So I feel like if they do that more, they might be able to get their bearings and go and really put out some good movies. Now, what we have coming up that we know that is they're currently shooting Aquaman, which is set to release in December 21st, 2018, and then we have Justice League that's coming out November 17th of this year in 2017. Now we know of the tragedy with Zack Snyder's family. He stepped away. He's left the project. They've brought in Josh Whedon to come in, and he's doing some rewrites on scenes for reshoots that were already scheduled beforehand. That's going to be taking place soon. And he's going to finish he's driving the car home down the home stretch. So it'll be interesting to see, but it's been some changes. They've taken the composer off this far in the movie. It's been rumors that this movie has been shot three times already. Is with Josh Whedon coming on, he's experienced from his work over at Marvel with the Marvel movies. He did the first 2 Avengers movies. Him and his brother, I think it's his brother, his cousin, he helped create the Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. TV show. Josh Whedon is a television guy and movie guy, so he's experienced. He's an experienced hand that's had a lot of success and has done these big budget movies before. So bringing him in, is he going to make some changes? Like I said, there's rumors that this movie has been totally reshot. It was the original a vision that Zack Snyder did. Because they were already shooting it shortly after Batman v Superman. After that movie got panned and people talked about how dark it was, they said they kind of went back and changed some things to lighten up the tone. Then there was some other tweaking done to it. Then now, it remains to be seen, what movie we're going to get. Again, it's been so many different shakeups and so many different other hands in the pot. At Warner Brothers and even like in DC Film, they did a lot. Like I said, it's been a lot of restructuring going on. It seemed like things are settled now. It's substantial reshoots are being done. It remains to be seen. We've seen this happen before when it comes to Star Wars with Rogue One. It turned out to be a really good movie, and it was a lot of controversy about reshoots and everything else. Reshoots happen in Hollywood. We're aware of that at this point. The magic is kind of flew off with that a long time ago. So it remains to be seen, and I just have to wait to see what the finished product is. With all that being said, DC has made a lot of announcements. DC Films has over the past couple of years, going back to Comic-Con, what was it, 2014 or 2015, when they released this huge slate. They came out of the gate, and because Marvel was doing it, they came back and was like, we're going to do it too, and we're going to put this whole movie slate out of movies we're going to do into 2020. And it was awesome, and we went crazy as fans at the time. You fast forward a couple of years, it's kind of gone sideways because we've gotten, far as fans look at, taking my personal side, 3 pretty lackluster movies, and we finally just got the first good movie this month. So, and we got, a lot was riding on Wonder Woman's shoulders. I think with the critical acclaim that Wonder Woman got, people are looking forward now to Justice League, and they're less worried about it. Though it is a whole bunch of shakeups, all you have to mention is the example of Rogue One not even a year ago, and that came out, did just fine, and people really enjoyed it. So, I kind of just have this wait and see type thing. I'm super hype after seeing the Justice League trailer about the Aquaman movie with just the casting of Jason Momoa and his charisma. Like, I'm super hype about that. I feel like, regardless of how Justice League, I wasn't worried about Wonder Woman, and I'm at this point because James Wan is a competent director, and I think they have the right star for that movie to make that movie succeed. It's like I wasn't worried about Wonder Woman. I'm not really worried about Aquaman. Justice League kind of can still be a little concerned, but I feel like the people they have in place now in these projects, if they leave them alone and let these artists do their thing, they're going to be fine. The problem then lies with all these other announcements that they've made over the past 2 years. Now, I'm just going to go over, movies that have been announced. Just have been announced. This is from the initial slate and movies and announcements they've made since then over the past like 2.5 years at this point. We have, and this is in no particular order, we have Gotham City Sirens that was announced. We have Nightwing that has been announced. Batgirl, they have mentioned that they're going to do a Man of Steel 2. We know because they were supposed to be filmed back-to-back together at the same time, is going to be a Justice League 2. They've already announced that it's going to be a Suicide Squad 2. When they announced the initial slate, it was supposed to be a Green Lantern or Green Lantern Corps movie. They've already announced the Batman. It was already announced that a Shazam movie was coming. It's been rumors about a Black Adam movie coming, breaking out. This has been more recent speculation that The Rock is putting out there that he's going to have his own standalone movie and also be in the Shazam movie. I don't think that was ever confirmed officially by Warner Brothers, but they didn't deny it either. So that remains to be seen. And of course, we know we have, Aquaman, The Flash, and that's been a troubled production. What had 4 different directors at this point walk off the project, which I'm going to talk about that in a second. The Cyborg movie was on the initial slate. It's been talks about a Will Smith Deadshot movie, and then can't forget about the whole controversial Dark Universe Justice League Dark movie, which since Universal took the title Dark Universe for their cinematic monster universe, I don't know what they're going to call it, but it was always under the working title of Dark Universe before this point. So that's a lot of movies. Like, how many is that? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15 different comic book related projects that have been announced in some form. And I left off stuff like, Wonder Woman 2. That's been a thing that's being talked about, that they're talking about, that they're, working on, Jeff Johns came out and said him and Patty are coming up with concepts for Wonder Woman 2 as well. So that's the thing. So 16 potential projects. They said they're taking a step back. They're concentrating on Justice League right now and pretty much waiting to see how Justice League is received on how they're going to proceed going forward. Here's the problem. Here's the problem with that. You've announced or talked about 16 freaking movies, some way before all that, and we don't know what's coming out after Aquaman. I think Flash was supposed to originally come out before Aquaman, if I'm not mistaken, or after. I can't remember, because that whole slate they initially put out, unlike Marvel, which pretty much stays on. They might shift dates for certain movies that come out in a particular year, but they've pretty much stayed on point. When they've announced the movies, they've hit them. The only movie that they've ever announced on their slate that they were announcing in 2020 that we're not going to see would be the Inhumans movie, because they've taken that and they've developed it in a TV show that's actually coming out ahead of schedule, because the Inhumans movie wasn't supposed to come out to like 2020. The show's coming out this fall. So, yeah. So it's kind of different when you look at those two things. So I went back and I had to look at it realistically, where we're at right now, and based on what DC Films are saying right now, that everything is pretty much on hold until after Justice League at this point, based on time frames and just dates they originally put out on this initial slate. It's kind of where I am going to speculate at this point, and I came up with based on the information that we know, or particular dates that other movies coming out per se from Marvel or etc. I did my best guess estimates on it, on what I think their suggested release schedule or realistic release schedule could be, and then I'm going to talk about what I think they should do after that. So if I'm looking at where things were announced and what might be easiest to produce based on things that were announced, the next movie probably after Aquaman that they could turn around quickly would be Shazam. And it was scheduled to come out around this time anyway. And I would think the soonest they could go, if we're looking out with Justice League, it comes out November of this year. It does extremely well. They're going to move forward. I would think Shazam, because The Rock is all of a sudden, it has been no real talk and movement. They announced the director a long time ago, David F. Sandberg, which directed Lights Out, which is and he's directed, what is the horror movie? I think Annabelle Creation, that's supposed to be coming out soon. He's directed that as well. They've already announced him as the director on this project a while back. And I think even before Lights Out came out last summer, he was already announced as the director. And we know that, Dwayne Johnson is tapped to play Black Adam. We've heard nothing else, and this has been out there for a while, I feel like, and it was set to come out around 2019. So if they started production early to mid 2018, they could hit a mid 2019 release. So, and we just got to figure out who's going to play Shazam, blah blah blah, or the Shazam movie could turn into this Black Adam movie that was being rumored. The Rock has thrown out a whole bunch of other stuff that he's supposed to, him and Henry Cavill are going to have some team up. I don't know if he's going to tie into Justice League and we're going to see Rock as Black Adam at some point in Justice League, or what. It's been The Rock has been doing a lot of talking on social media, putting out a lot of stuff with Henry Cavill. Maybe he might be in the Superman sequel, whenever Man of Steel sequel, when that comes out. A lot of stuff is being thrown out in that way. So it makes me think that, and especially with The Rock, he puts out a couple major movies a year. I feel like, this could be, it doesn't have to be the mega production, something like Justice League or even Wonder Woman. This could probably be a smaller budget, smaller film. So you can turn it around quickly. So I feel like they could get this shot, through production, because we haven't heard of anything about it for so long. If you've announced a director, I would think it's a script somewhere for this movie. They just would have to, do the rest of the casting and get this one. So I feel like this is the one movie that they could turn around quickly and get out by April 5th is the date. April 5th, 2019. They could get that out. Then I believe the next movie that they would logically want to do coming off of that would be have the Justice League sequel, whatever that would be titled, come out around June 14th of 2019. The Cyborg movie was originally slated to come out in 2020. I think it was like April 3rd of 2020. I don't necessarily think that this Cyborg movie is going to get made. I feel like deep down in my gut, and I always felt this way when they said they were going to do a Cyborg standalone movie, that it was never actually going to happen. That date and it will end up be used for something else. And I'll say that this movie is going to be canceled. We're never going to see it. Something else or some hybrid movie is going to be released in its place for April 3rd of 2020. I don't see it happening at this point. And there's no offense to Cyborg because I love the character, but as a standalone, I see him always as a team with the Teen Titans. Is where, they promoted him to the Justice League. I can see him being in the Justice League movie. I just really can't see him in it do well at all. I just don't think unless he's one of the breakout stars from the Justice League movie, but just from the footage they've shown of that movie, the breakout stars are going to be Flash and going to be Aquaman and Wonder Woman. You know what I'm saying? Like, those people are way more established, and so unless from what I'm seeing, and I like the guy that's the actor. I think his name is Ray Fisher. I want to say he seems really cool. He has the look. He looks like Vic to me. And I've talked about my issues with his CGI. All of it just equates to not good box office. So I just can't see it in my head right now. So I would feel like that movie wouldn't make it wouldn't see the light of day. You know, they was talks about maybe he would cameo, or they would like do a buddy situation in the Flash movie. That would work better than him getting a standalone movie. So again, like I said, I don't think that movie will ever see the light of day at this point, but I could be totally wrong, especially in between now and then, Marvel doing Black Panther, and if Black Panther's a hit, they'll push for this movie. Will it do the numbers that Black Panther will do? Probably not, but it remains to be seen, because a lot can happen between now and then, and that character really could get over, and they could, get some talent behind it, because they never announced a director. We just said, they said Ray Fisher is going to reprise his role as Cyborg in the standalone movie. It was one of the, and that's another reason why I felt like that it's never going to get made, because there was never any casting announced. There was never any director attached to it. And we've had movies that have came since then that has had some casting done, directors announced. It just never came together for this movie at this point. We haven't heard a peep outside of this initial slate being released that it was going to be a Cyborg movie about any other information in relation to a Cyborg movie. So that this makes me think they don't feel as confident in it when they've just announced movies like Nightwing and stuff, where they immediately attached a director to it, screenwriter to it, that it's already 10 steps ahead of what the Cyborg movie is as far as what they've released out publicly. The next movie would be the Green Lantern movie, which was originally set to come out around 2020, and the date I came up with was July 24th of 2020. Again, we don't know as far as casting, and this is another thing too. They've announced so much stuff that they announced things like, we know, who's playing certain parts, or we know what director, or we know what certain premises are going to be for some of the movies, and we don't know anything about Green Lantern. As far as we know, it's been some speculation, but we don't know for certain what Green Lantern they're going to cover. Is it going to be Green Lantern, or is it going to be Green Lantern Corps? They kind of said it wasn't going to be a standalone Green Lantern movie. It was going to be more like a Green Lantern Corps movie initially. That's the only kind of details they let out about it. No director has been attached, and we don't know, if it's going to be Green Lanterns, plural, or Green Lantern, singular. We don't know yet. I feel like maybe they could get that movie off the ground and get it out by July of 2020. Next, the movie I would have on the slate would be Man of Steel, which is a shame, because at this point, the next open date that I could see that they could put this movie out just where they are now, and that they haven't said anything about it, is outside of that they do want to work on. They want to do a Man of Steel sequel, and they need to get to work on that. They acknowledge that because that was the kicker, the kickstart to this whole thing of this DC expanded universe. That it would be 7 years at this point, roundabout, when this movie would be released. The next date I would see would be November 6th of 2020. I personally, because I felt like he did a good job with the first movie, I would like to see the original team come back. I would like to see Zack Snyder direct it. I doubt it might happen. It's even been rumors that maybe they might even get Patty Jenkins to, because she's a huge Richard Donner fan. And, when she was going around doing press for Wonder Woman, she was like, he inspired her, to get into filmmaking. So I think she would love to do it. And I think it might be a good fit. But I think Zack Snyder, one of his better movies that he's ever directed was Man of Steel. And I would bring back David Goyer and Christopher Nolan to write that screenplay. I think it was a good movie. Some people didn't like the tone of it. I loved it. I'm not a Superman fan, but they made me care about Superman in a way that I hadn't before, especially on film. I would like to see them come back. I doubt that will happen, but deep down I would like to see it. And I think it was very well directed. It was definitely well shot. No one can ever doubt Zack Snyder as a director, as far as his talent and the visuals that he puts up on screen. Now, his pacing and his character development can be shaky at points, but I felt like his best job overall directing was Man of Steel, to me. So I would like to see him come back and finish out his story on that. But again, I feel like November 6, 2020, if we're making this all contingent on everything's on hold till after the release of Justice League, I feel like that's about if they put all steam ahead, and get these movies in production, that might be the soonest we would see a Man of Steel sequel would be, November 2020. At this point, because The Flash is an utter mess, and they said a couple of months ago that they are throwing the script out and they're doing a page 1 rewrite of the script, and we still don't have a director. Now, this has been interesting because Lord and Miller just walked off or just was fired. There's a whole slew of rumors going around about that whole situation. Lord and Miller left the young Han Solo, or the Han Solo prequel situation. They left that. They were originally slated to do The Flash before they left that project to go to the Han Solo thing. And it's been speculated that they had meetings while on the hiatus when they were still on the Han Solo movie with Warner Brothers about potentially coming back to The Flash. So they could be reattached to this movie and things might be a go. But, it remains to be seen. I would say at this point, just because of it's not going to hit the initial date of coming out in 2018 like it was originally supposed to. So at this point, if you look at everything, all things equal, this movie probably wouldn't hit. Well, a lot of things can change, depending if they fast track one thing or another. But I would say, as far as how I'm looking at it, this movie would probably be pushed and wouldn't come out till 2021 at this point. And I'll say March 19th was a date that I set for this, and I said Flash would be 2021 before we would see it. Next, which they announced, and we know Matt Reeves is directing that, which he has War of the Planet of the Apes coming out. What is it, July 14th? So in a couple of weeks. He was when he was in negotiations, he was finishing up that movie. So we know he is coming on to direct the Batman. So much again, just like with Flash, it's been so much negative publicity surrounding this movie because Ben was supposed to write it with Jeff Johns and direct the movie. Then that was the thing. Then Ben's Live by Night, it tanked. Then he went into rehab and that came out. Then people thought he might walk away from the project as a whole because he's supposed to be producer and director. Then they were like, okay, he's just supposed to be acting in the movie. It's so much stuff, and after they announced and signed Matt Reeves on to direct the movie. I know a script there. It's a script that still needs to be worked on. We don't know when this movie's going in production. I think it would be a higher priority. But still at this point, because we haven't heard any movement on it, we don't know if Ben is staying on board with the project or they're going to have to recast. It's so much we don't know at this point, and I think we're not going to know and I think a lot of it's depending on if Ben stays on how well Justice League is received and his performance in it. People loved him, and people said one of the best parts of Batman v Superman was Ben Affleck's portrayal of Batman, and I really enjoyed it as well. And I want to see him stay on board this project, but at this point, the realistic expectation at this point, it would be June 2021 probably before we ever get this movie at this point. Again, I think these dates could shift and change if they didn't put out the caveat that they're waiting till after Justice League. They said everything's on hold till after Justice League. So it's times that a lot of this stuff could be in pre-production, and it still might be, but they're just going radio silent on it. So these dates are just rough general estimates that came out. Looking at, like I said, the original slate that they put out and dates that they bookmarked, and some of those dates were untitled dates that they just kind of place marked. So all things equal, if those place marks still are in hold, these are dates that I'm kind of filling in these kind of projects that we know about in. Just, logistically on how long a movie takes to go into production and they get a finished product on. If they, a lot of these movies would have a lot going on. They would be having a lot of movies, being in production at one time. But they can do it because Marvel constantly does it. So we know it can be done. Let's see. The aforementioned Suicide Squad sequel, I feel at this point it would be like around August 13th, 2021. I don't know. I know they said at one point that they were trying to get Mel Gibson to direct this. We know David Ayer was announced to direct Gotham City Sirens. I would actually like to see him come back and direct the Suicide Squad sequel with more time, because he only had 6 weeks to write. This is another thing that people didn't realize. They gave him 6 weeks to write a script before he went in to shoot the film. All things considered, I don't know if I could write a script in 6 weeks and then go directly from that and shoot a good movie. I don't know. I'm just saying. That just seems like a lot of pressure. And then they tampered with the movie, and I don't think we'll ever see his actual cut of the movie whatsoever. And because David Ayer is a proven director and a proven writer in Hollywood. He's directed hits and he's written hits. I felt like if they gave him time and if the studio didn't mess with his movie, I would like to see what his Suicide Squad sequel would look like. Untouched, untampered with. I think it could actually be a good movie. So I would kind of like to see him get redemption with the Suicide Squad before doing Gotham City Sirens. But I know they were in talks with other directors to potentially bring on to do the Suicide Squad sequel. But I would think, since the first movie came out in August, that they would shoot for August again, because it did extremely well for it to be not the best movie. So again, I would say August 13th, 2021 would be around the time that they could drop that Suicide Squad sequel. A Wonder Woman sequel would follow thereafter in March of 2020, with Patty Jenkins, of course, coming back to direct again with Gal Gadot starring. They recapture that magic in a bottle. I know they're trying to come up with concepts. They're playing around with the idea of doing another standalone movie in the likes of it would be in the past, but more modern, but not current day. I don't necessarily know if I like that or not, but I trust Patty Jenkins because she did such a great job with the first movie. And I think her and Jeff Johns are trying to come up with a treatment to try to move on to get scripted. So it's still a ways out. So, again, it remains to be seen because some of these other movies would have to come out first before we, that would even come. So I would be like at least, 2022 before we would get the Wonder Woman sequel. They announced a Nightwing movie. I would say this would be June 3rd, 2022. We got Chris McKay. He directed the Lego Batman movie. Is directing this. We don't know anything outside of Chris McKay and I can't remember the writer's name. He wrote the script for The Accountant, the Ben Affleck movie. It was really good. I really liked the movie. I can't remember what the writer's name is, but it's the same writer from that. That's all they announced at this point. That Chris McKay and that writer are collabing to work on the script for that movie, but we know nothing else about what the Nightwing movie is going to be about at all. So I would say it would be June 2022 before we would get that. And then Batgirl, I would say it would come out November 25th of 2022. We already know that they brought in Josh Whedon. He's supposed to be directing that. I don't know if he's writing the script for it as well, but I know he's directing that. I think that's a ways off because he's going to be so busy with trying to finish up the Justice League, and I think he's going to direct the Justice League sequel at this point. So I think he essentially, though it's not been announced, I feel like he would do the Justice League sequel first and do and then come back later and do the Batgirl movie. So I think he's going to direct both of those films, though it hasn't been officially announced yet. I think especially if they like the results that come out of Justice League, he's definitely going to do that sequel, and they're going to try to fast track it. I would think Batgirl would then go on the back burner. As a passion project he probably wants to do that they're going to make sure they let him do. Excuse me. But he's going to hook him up with the Justice League sequel first. Then I don't have dates, so those dates kind of ran out from there. And then I was like, because I don't necessarily know if Gotham City Sirens is going to make it to the light of day. It remains to be seen. Justice League Dark, the director that they had attached left. So I don't know what they're going to do with this Dark Universe, Justice League Dark movie. I would like to see it. I don't know where they would fit it in at this point. And then we don't have any concrete confirmation about this Black Adam situation. The Rock said that, they were going to do a Black Adam movie. I think he even said David F. Sandberg was going to direct that. I don't know if it's going to then replace the Shazam movie or if they're still going to do both. I don't know. It's just stuff that he's thrown out. Since they haven't denied it, it makes me at least think that it might happen. Because The Rock rarely says anything on social media that doesn't kind of come true. So kind of thinking either it's just the Shazam is just going to turn into a Black Adam movie, or they're going to do a Shazam and Black Adam movie. Again, remains to be seen. So those movies are like up in the air for me. Those three, because Justice League Dark has been thrown around ever since, after Man of Steel, before even Batman v Superman was a thing. They were talking about Guillermo del Toro was trying to get this Justice League Dark movie off the ground. So, and it really hasn't been any movement. Like I said, it had, I can't remember the director's name, but he was attached to it. Then because of scheduling, he recently walked away from the project. So I think it kind of killed it in the water for at least the time being. And then with the whole naming thing of Dark Universe and then Universal using it, that's more of a issue that I think would tie this movie up and push it even further behind. I would like to kind of see, if I had my wish, I think at this point, I think the next three movies after Aquaman, because you couldn't get something produced and out before Aquaman at this point. So we're looking at like my three movies. I would feel like you would have to get the Flash on track and get the Flash out. You would have to do a Man of Steel sequel. And I feel like you then would have to do the Justice League sequel. So those would be my three that I would kind of push for, and use that second Justice League movie to kind of set up your Cyborg potentially, your Green Lantern potentially, and even the Batman movie. I think, you would need that to come out first to kind of world build some more, because they try to do too much in one movie. And I always felt like Batman v Superman, Man of Steel 2 should have came out then Batman v Superman. And I think Batman v Superman wouldn't have had so much weight to carry on its own. And it wouldn't have had to set up so much. You could have spread all the reveals and all the stuff they were trying to do through Man of Steel 2, and the whole Lex Luthor component could have been handled in that movie and carried over, and because it felt just so cramped. So trying to set up all the world, to try to catch up with Marvel in one movie, and it wasn't successful. So I always felt like that Man of Steel sequel should have been before that. But what's done is done. But I feel like now, because it's been so far between, it's going to be a substantial number of years, but before we ever get this Man of Steel sequel. So I think at the point they decide what's next, if they do that, it needs to be like fast tracked immediately. They need to get that out. You can't have like 10 years. Marvel was smart enough to make sure, like they used the Iron Man movies to help world build around him, because he's the jumping off point of it all. So he's like, you would think he's the central figure then. But who knows at this point? But that's my hope. That would be my hopes. But then like I said, just from the logistics standpoint of dates that were announced during when that initial slate, I use that as my base point. That's what I see, logistically. But then for me, I would go slightly different, because I would love to see that Man of Steel sequel get out there at some point. I hope you guys like this episode. Again, it's doing something different. It was trying to speculate. I want to do more of these, like fixing the X-Men, film universe. Do some other ones, or how to fix like the Spider-Man franchise, like different stuff like that. Again, I try to keep different ideas and concepts for you guys to keep on your toes. I would like to hear your suggestions. Again, you can always, even when you go to the website as well, you can leave comments on the episodes on the website there. So if you're not comfortable joining the Facebook group, or leaving, but it's even a fan page too. If you don't want to go in the discussion group, you can always leave comments on the Comic Book Savant Facebook page. But if not that, you can just go to, the website, comicbooksavant.com, because you can listen to the episodes directly from the website. You can leave comments under there. Let me know what you would release. Like, what would your top 3 movies that you would release after Aquaman would be? I'd like to hear what you guys would come up with all the information we have given. You don't have to go into dates. Again, I was just looking at, I found that slate. I had to dig it up. I had to Google it and find that initial slate and the dates that they had to kind of, piecemeal this together. You don't have to go that deep. I'm just a geek and I couldn't help myself. But you guys don't have to do that. And just give me your top 3 movies in the order you would like to see them coming off of Aquaman, So that's all I have for you guys this week. That was a lot. I know it was a lot to digest mentally, but it's a lot out there. But I think, again, this would be a moot topic of conversation if Wonder Woman flopped. But it bought them some time. And I just think, I think, and I say this, and I hope this is not the case, because I want to see him succeed. I feel like even if Justice League is not that good, they have enough goodwill off of Wonder Woman that people will still be in it to Aquaman. But if like Aquaman would bomb too, they're like shot. They're done. I feel like they're done from there. But I feel like, no, they're going in the right track and bringing on someone like Josh Whedon. If it was any problems, he's kind of brought on to right the ship. So I feel like they're on track now, and they understand, seeing what they have with Wonder Woman and how the fans are continually going out to support it, and all the goodwill that it has garnered, that they want to keep that going. So it's really going to be important, because I think they have a winner with Aquaman, with Jason Momoa and James Wan. So, if they can really get 3, even, like their first 3 wasn't well received, but if they keep this going between Justice League and Aquaman, and so they go 3 for 6, they're hitting 500. That is going to be real important what they pick next and the talent they have surrounding. But I hope they keep it going in a positive direction, because I want to see all these movies make it to the light of day at some point. I don't have a preference. I'm a comic book fan. I'm a comic book fan in general. So I'm a comic book movie fan. So I'm not more pro Marvel or pro DC. I'm just pro good stuff. Always have been. And I think that's what we all are. So, I want to see him succeed most definitely. So we're going to see how it all comes out in the wash. As always, check out the website, comicbooksavant.com. You can follow me on Twitter, Instagram, at Comic Book Savant. You got the YouTube channel. Please go over, if you have a moment, subscribe to the YouTube channel. I'm doing, videos. I didn't do one last week. Like I said, I fell behind, so I didn't do a podcast or a YouTube episode. But I should have this will be out this week, and I have an idea of a video that I'm going to do, so that should be out there as well. So don't forget to go over to youtube.com/comic book savant. Please subscribe, please. And that's all I have for you guys for this week. Check out the sponsors over at InStockTrades.com. Check out the Comic Podcast Network as well at ComicsPodcast.com. I will have links on the website to recommendations, and those are links over to Amazon if you need to pick up these movies. Click on the links, help support the show. If you don't already own those movies, you want to buy them, it'll be the links there on the website. Click on them, help support a brother out, help the podcast grow. Appreciate it. But again, that's all I have for you guys this week. I will see you again next week for another episode of Comic Book Savant. You guys take care and have a good week.
And into lyrical wholeness. And I know this, and I know this. This I know, this I know.